Hey guys, Matt here with BuiltRight Industries. Today we're going to walk you through the installation of a BuiltRight Industries seat back MOLLE panel kit for your 3rd gen Colorado or Canyon. Let's get into it. First thing you're going to find here is the lower bracket. We'll pull that out of its bag and set it aside. The next thing we've got is the upper bracket, nicely protected there. Let's set that aside as well. We have a hardware kit along with a card that's going to direct you to the installation guide, and a sticker. And last but not least, we have our MOLLE panel here. This is the last step here, so I'm going to leave this in the box. I'm going to open up the hardware kit here. We've got our aluminum CNC tie-down loops with the foam rubber protective tape there. We have a handful of black stainless steel hardware. You're going to notice a couple of these bolts. I can grab them here, are 1/4 size. The rest of these are number 12 hardware. And then we've got some 1/4 nuts, 2 more 1/4 bolts that are zinc plated, 1/4 washers. We're going to go through all this as we install. And then the last thing is that in the hardware kit we've also got the 2 different size Allen wrenches you're going to need to complete this install. In addition to the Allen wrenches, you're going to need a couple of standard wrenches or a socket. This is 3/8. This is for the head of that zinc plated bolt. This is 7/16. That's for the zinc plated nut. You're definitely going to need a wrench for the nut on the bolt. Wrench or a socket should do the trick. All right, so the first couple steps here are basically getting access to the seat frame. You're going to have this flap here. If you reach under, there are 2 elastic straps with little hooks. You're just going to want to figure out how to pull those off of whatever they're clipped into. Just like that. So the next thing you're going to see is probably these 2 J-channel pieces that are holding the upper upholstery to the lower upholstery. These, you can kind of just muscle them apart. Sometimes you find it easier to slide them and then pull. There's one. If you slide it off the end a little bit and then kind of wrench it over, it should pop off just like that. The next thing you've got is this lower flap here. A couple of plastic hooks holding it to the frame. This is the piece that we're looking to expose. This is what we're going to attach our bracket to. So the next thing you're going to do, I'm going to use a little pry tool I've got here. You could use, anything or just yank on them if you're careful. But I'm going to get couple of these push clips that are holding wiring harnesses to the surface here that we need. I'm going to pull those off. And this one already is off. So we've got our lower bracket here. You can see that the ends swoop. These are actually swooping up in this case. So this is the orientation of the bracket you're looking for. This is a little bit tricky because we want to get it underneath these wiring harnesses. So you're going to just want to use care. If you have your seat folded way forward, you have a lot of access to this, but it also pulls the harnesses a little bit tighter. So I've got the seat back. And then this is compliant here. This is this foam rubber here. I'm going to use that to push the bracket in and slip it back behind here. So I'm actually going to start by slipping it into the center of the truck and then out and around this harness here. So it's actually helpful. You can rotate it like this to get it under there. Rotate the bracket back around, and I'm going to push it all the way to the side there and sneak it under that harness. And there we go. Now I can get the bracket into place exactly where I want it. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is slip a bolt back behind here. Washer. Get that nut started finger tight. And then I'm going to repeat that over here on the far side. Before I tighten this up, notice you got some side to side here. Try and get that more or less centered between the plastic trim on the seat. Looks pretty good. I'm going to take my 3/8 wrench and fish that back behind here to keep that bolt head from moving. And use my 7/16 wrench or socket to tighten it down. All right, so it's a little tight back here, and you'll understand why there's a lip here. Basically what I did is I pulled this other harness out from behind the frame here, and then if you could see through the frame, what you would have seen is my wrench was basically down like this behind this bracket, holding onto the head of that bolt. All right, so I'm going to do the same process on this side, and then button the upholstery back up. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is replace any of the harnesses that we popped out of our clips. There are a couple of spots, these gray ones, where we're using those holes to mount the bracket. So I'm fine leaving these hanging. There is one down here. If you wanted to loosely put a zip tie around here, you certainly could. I like to leave it hanging. The upholstery is going to keep it in place, and it's going to allow it to move around as it needs to when you're articulating the seat. So I'm comfortable with how I've got this button back up. I'm going to reinstall the upholstery in the opposite order, and then we'll move on to the upper bracket. All right, so we're gonna do the upper bracket next. I've got 4 number 12 bolts, 4 washers, the 2 loops, and the 2 pieces of foam tape. First thing I'm gonna do here is take this foam tape and install it on the inside of this loop. We try to cut them to length, but if they're a little bit long, you could trim them down. They'll also just kind of get smashed a little bit as you install them, so no need to be perfect with this. Just a little bit of a buffer between the panel system and your headrest post, just like that. All right, so we're going to install the upper bracket here. Pretty straightforward. It's going to sit about like that. These 2 loops are going to grab the headrest. So the first thing I'm going to do is get each of these 4 bolts started loosely, and then we can get the bracket exactly where we wanted and tighten them down a little bit more. We're going to leave them a little bit loose until the very end of the installation to give us some adjustability as we install the large panel. Just like that, I can still muscle it around a little bit, but it's holding the bracket at the right angle. The next thing I'm going to do is grab the large MOLLE panel and we'll get it installed right here. All right, so what I would encourage you to do just before you lift this into place is separate your hardware. These 3 bolts are in number 12. The 2 on the bottom are quarter 20, which are a little bit bigger. Just you want to make sure you're not grabbing the wrong stuff and cross-threading. The other thing is that there is a top and a bottom to this panel. The top has 1 notch in it. The bottom has 2. The reason that matters is that on the top there's a slot here right in the middle, and that slot right in the middle is the one that we're going to use on the center of our upper bracket here. So not a huge deal if you don't do that. Your panel might just be shifted a 1/4 inch from one side to the other. I'm going to get each of these 3 started, a few threads loosely so I can let the panel hang. And then we're going to bolt down the bottom. All right, so on the bottom of the panel here, we're going to use the quarter 20 bolt with a washer through it, through the support bracket on the bottom. Get the quarter 20 nut started on the back side here. It's gonna be a little bit tight. Before we tighten anything, we're gonna repeat that on the other side. Once again, slipping a nut behind here, bolt through both panels. Getting it started, couple threads there until you hit that nylock. Insert. All right, so with everything installed loosely, I'm gonna go ahead and center this up at the top. I'm gonna grab my included Allen key with everything centered the way I like it, and tighten down these 3 fasteners. And then I'm gonna move down to the bottom with the other Allen key and a 7/16 wrench. I'm gonna use a wrench to hold that nut back there. Tighten down. Repeat that on this other side. Last step. You remember we left the top a little bit loose here. And go back and forth and cinch these down. They do not need to be super tight. Remember, this is pretty small hardware. Just enough to keep them from slipping around. All right, so just like that, we've got the BuiltRight Industries seatback MOLLE panel kit installed in our Colorado. Obviously, the process is going to be the same for a Canyon. We've also installed it on the driver's side, but on the passenger side, it's also going to be the same process. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, please send us an email, give us a phone call, find us in the comments. Thanks for watching.